Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of December 14, 2020, the Menlo Park Planning Commission. We have present with us tonight Commissioner Barnes, Commissioner Doran, Commissioner Kale, Commissioner Tate, and I am your chair, Henry Riggs. We also have for staff tonight, Leo Tapia, Corinna Sandemeyer, and we will have specific staff, including Matt Pruder for our first two projects. And Corinna.
Chair Riggs.
Yes.
Connectivity problems, but I'm here. It's Commissioner DeCardi.
And Commissioner DeCardi is also present. Thank you. So Corinna, actually, I didn't see your face when I said you were present. Do you have reports or announcements for us tonight?
Yes, good evening, Chair Riggs and Commissioners. So the City Council will be meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. and it'll be recognition of outgoing council members, welcome for new ones, and the selection of the mayor and vice mayor. That concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for our staff tonight? All right, we'll start our evening as usual with the public comment period. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda, and items listed under the consent calendar are good for this period as well. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Mr. Tapia, do we have any public comment hands raised? Oh, I neglected to say, for those who have not attended us before, if you would like to make public comment, please click on the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. I believe it's on the upper left edge of the control panel, and it's a bit small, so it might take you a moment to find it. You click on that, staff will know you want to speak, and they will connect you.
Good evening, Chair, fellow members of the Commission, and members of the public. Yes, as Chair Riggs did mention, you do have an option to select the hand icon on your screen to notify staff, or alternatively, there is a question field in your control panel, which you can open up, and you can also write in a question, and then staff can read that aloud. And it looks like we are receiving one written in question, Chair Riggs. With your permission, I could read it aloud.
And is this a public comment not related to an item on the agenda?
That is correct.
All right, yes, please do.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward. The question is from Jorge Tapia, and it's stating, will this meeting be recorded?
All right, thank you. And Ms. Sandemeyer, I believe our meetings are recorded. Would you confirm that for us?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. That much we can respond to. And do we have any other indications of desire to speak?
At this time, I can confirm that there are no additional comments, Chair Riggs.
All right, it is 7:07. I suggest that we move ahead. I will close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. Tonight we have approval of the minutes from the November 16, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Does anyone need to pull the minutes for discussion, or do we have a motion to approve? Yes, Mr. Kale.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. DeCarty. All right, we have a motion on the table to approve the minutes of November 16. I will call for votes by name, starting with Mr. Barnes. That's an aye. And Mr. DeCarty. An aye. Mr. Doran.
I'm an aye.
All right, Mr. Kale.
Aye.
All right, and Ms. Tate. That's an aye, and I'm thumbs up. So we have an approval of 6-0 with Commissioner Kennedy absent at this time. All right, that closes the consent calendar portion, and we move on to item F, which is a public hearing. Our first item, item F1, is a use permit request from Chris Kummerer for 680 Lemon Street. This is a request for a use permit to demolish an existing one-story single-family residence and construct a two-story single-family residence with an accessory dwelling unit greater than 1,000 square feet in the basement on a substantial lot, substandard lot with regard to lot width in the R1S single-family suburban residential zoning district. The proposed project also includes a use permit request for excavation into the required left side setback for a proposed light well. Mr. Pruder, do you have any additions or comments regarding the project?
Good evening, Chair Riggs and Planning Commission. At this time, there are no additional updates for this project, but I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. From our commissioners, any questions regarding the project? All right, seeing none, I'd like to invite the applicant to present the project to whatever degree you would like to do.
Great. Thank you, Chair Riggs and Commissioners. My name is Chris Kummerer of CKA Architects here in Menlo Park. And I'm here with my clients, John and Francie Miletus, and we're happy to be able to present the project to you tonight. I'd also like to thank staff for getting us on the hearing, for their hard work, and also for their recommendation of approval of the project. So this is the culmination of a 3-year effort for our clients. A remodel and a second-story addition was conceived by another architect for the home. This is the existing home here. And that project didn't move forward because of some of the complexities of an existing non-conforming home. You can see that the setbacks are shown in orange, and the existing home is wider than the setbacks. And there were also complexities with calculations of double height spaces. So that project was abandoned, and we were retained to design the new home. So the lot is substandard, as mentioned in the staff report, substandard in width. There's an approximately 12-foot high hedge on the east that's going to remain between us and the neighboring parcel to the right. There's a mature redwood tree in the back here, sort of to the northeast, and then a mature oak tree on the rear, on the parcel behind, that's going to remain. And there's also another mature tree here. So the lot has quite a bit of privacy from neighbors and for the neighbors. The design itself is conceived as a traditional home with Tudor-style elements. The broad porch is designed to diminish the mass of the larger volumes behind and to try to provide a soft look from the street. A mixture of natural wood, stucco siding, aluminum-clad wood windows, metal roof, and composition shingle roof are employed to try to create interest and depth to the design. Here's a look of the front with that natural wood and the broad porch. Here's a look of the rear, the little courtyard in the back. So studies like this were made to test the aesthetic of the design in an effort to try to make it attractive for the neighborhood. And various materials were tried on and considered to try to create clear volumes and using bay windows as accents. Here's some of the homes that we looked at and some of the forms and materials that we looked at. So the house itself conforms with all of the setbacks and heights, daylight planes, and square footage, whatnot regulations. And as you can see, our clients have done extensive outreach with their neighbors, as outlined in the staff report, to make sure that we don't catch anybody by surprise and that the design's been communicated. There has been some back and forth and removal of some windows and whatnot. So we're pleased overall that staff recommends approval of the project. We think it's an attractive design, and hopefully it'll be an asset for the street and the neighborhood. And we hope you feel the same way. Thank you, and be happy to try to answer questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Coomer. Any questions from our commissioners before I go to public comment? Mr. Kale.
Thank you. I had a couple quick questions. The front columns, I see they're on the plan, or on the elevation, they're noted to be wood, but in the rendering they look like they're stucco.
Yeah, thank you. So that's meant to be white painted wood. So let's see if I can get us back to that image. Yeah, so that's meant to be white painted wood and not stucco. One more. There we go.
Okay. And the chimney itself, did you, I know it looks like you studied some different materials. Did you look at some stone for that? I mean, that's one of the hallmarks of the Tudor style, is a stone chimney.
We did study some of that, yes. There were some budget discussions as well, and we opted for the stucco as a cleaner, also a little bit more modern look and easier on the budget.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit about just the flare that I see at the edges of the eaves? Is that a smooth kind of a transition, or is it more of an abrupt change?
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. Yeah, it's meant to be just a little smooth transition and just a little accent. You know, it's not, the idea isn't to make a big statement with that, but you'll see those types of things in these homes. Just another way to try to get a little bit of detail. If you look at this image in the middle on the bottom, it's got that little transition, and that's kind of the look we're going for.
So it should have like it should have some curve feeling to it.
Well, it's a change in pitch, but it's slight change in pitch, and instead of a curve.
Not a curve. Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
And the last, this is really a question, but I see there's a pocket door in the basement separating the ADU from the house, and I don't know if you're going to be able to get a fire rating with a pocket door like that.
Thank you. That's a good question. You're probably right. We may have to go to swinging for that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will go to public comment. Once again, public comment can be activated by the hand icon on the side of your GoToWebinar control panel on the right of your screen. That will let staff, which is a way of saying Mr. Tapia, know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, there is a message box you can type in as a chat and either ask a question or indicate that you are having trouble making a connection. So now would be your time to weigh in. Mr. Tapia, do we see any indications of life out there?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission and members of the public. At this time, I am not seeing any comments from any members of the public, neither any questions that have been written in, but we can give it a second or two to see if any come through.
All right, that's a good idea. All right, if we're still seeing none, we may want to close public comment. Mr. Tapia, any indicators, any indication?
No comments at this time, Chair Riggs.
All right, thank you. Then we will close public comment and bring it back to the commission members for comments, additional questions, motions. Mr. Barnes.
I really appreciate this project. Coming from back east and coming from a neighborhood of Tudors, I think the modern take on Tudor style, I think the use of materials is wonderful. I think that the second floor clearly was put in place to reduce massing, its setback. I love the form. I think the rear elevation is beautiful as well. I can tell, well, my guess is there's an intent to enjoy the back part of the house and the different forms back there as well. So from a form perspective, from a materials perspective, from an architectural design perspective, and from a being positive for the neighborhood, I think a great job. And I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you. And do we have a second for further comments? Mr. Kale.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll second the motion. I wanted to express, I think it's a very thoughtful design. I appreciate the fact that there's an ADU in it. The rear balcony, I like that it's well screened for protection of privacy to the neighbors. I'm still a little bit on the fence on the chimney, whether that should be stone or stucco. And I'm a little disappointed that you left 0.1 square feet on the table that you could have used. But I second the motion.
All right. If there are any other comments before we vote, now is the time. And I will simply second comments that have been made, Mr. Barnes in particular. it's a pleasure to see this kind of architecture that raises the level of a neighborhood rather than borrows from it. So with that, I will call for the vote. And once again, I will call names alphabetically for thumbs up or thumbs down, starting with Mr. Barnes. That's an up, and Mr. DeCardi. Again, and Mr. Doran. That's an affirmative. Mr. Kale.
Yes.
Affirmative, and Ms. Tate. And a big thumbs up here. Very nice project. So the motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Kennedy absent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Very much welcome. All right. So that concludes our item F1. We'll move on to item F2. Applicant Cynthia Tebow. This is 505 Central Avenue. This is a request for a use permit to demolish an existing one-story single-family home and detached garage and construct a new two-story residence with an attached one-car garage, front-loading garage, that is a front-loading garage, and one uncovered alley-accessed parking space on a substandard lot with regard to minimum lot width in the R1U, that single-family urban residential zoning district. Mr. Pruder, any comments or changes on this project?
Good evening, Chair Riggs and Planning Commissioners again. I do have two updates to report this evening for this project. First, in the staff report, there was an error in the correspondence section at the bottom of page 4. I apologize for the error, but the applicant did not indicate whether they had spoken with the neighbor who publicly commented. That was an error that was provided in the document. Second, I have emailed a supplemental memo to each of you from the applicant's arborist that was not included in the staff report, but was meant to be included in the attachment F arborist report itself. And my apologies for this error as well. That concludes my announcements, and I am available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
And I apologize, Mr. Pruder, in the correspondence, which was the misstatement?
Sure thing. Let me clarify that a little further. In the specific section of the staff report there for correspondence, there is a statement there that says that the applicant stated in there, this is 3 lines from the very bottom of page 4, stating that the applicant stated in their project description letter that they spoke with this neighbor to address some of the concerns expressed. And we did not receive an actual indication of whether or not they spoke with that neighbor. So I just wanted to clarify for the record that speaking itself was not confirmed, and it was a misstatement on staff's part, and I apologize for that.
It was an email exchange, I believe, instead. Is that correct?
I can clarify for the project description letter, it was stated that an email was exchanged, was sent to the commenter, but that's per the project description letter. It's written in the document.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions from staff, regarding the project? Mr. DeCardi?
Yeah, so I'm conflicted on this. I live near the project. I've checked with staff. I'm going to turn off my camera and we'll simply stand by and enter back in once this item is closed.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or recusals to note before we ask for the presentation by the applicant? All right, seeing none, we will move ahead and ask the applicant to present the project. Is that Ms. Tebow?
Hi, it's actually Anna Felver.
Good
I do
evening.
have my, good evening, chair, commissioners, staff. I do have my colleague Cynthia Tebow, as well as Deanne Green and Chelsea Bright with me, and our architect from KTGY, Jill Williams. And I'll be presenting the project 505 Central. This has gone on since for about a year now. We have a lot size of 7,000 square feet. We are substandard with a 50-foot wide lot and 140-foot long. We are in a flood zone. We are proposing a 2-story residence in place of the existing 1-story. It'll be 4 bedroom, 3 bath. It does have a 1-car attached garage, and we are providing another space off the alleyway in the back. We have an FAL of 2,777 square feet. We're below the percentage maximum square footage for lot coverage, being at 1,920. We are proposing a farmhouse style. Looking at the street context, there's an eclectic group of styles and a mixture between 1 and 2 stories. The idea with the proposed home is to try to step back that 2nd story in the front and create a more human scale with that bedroom in the front as well as the garage. And then we have a porch area off to the left, as you can see in the rendering. And that's to allow us to step back as well and minimize that 2nd floor. We brought in from the side the 2nd floor, again, trying to minimize that 2nd story impact and try to create more 1-story elements. We have a maximum height of, we're up to a 26-foot height. Our maximum is 28 feet. So we've tried to bring our overall height down while we're in a floodplain zone and we're at a raised foundation. So that was pretty tricky, and we were trying to address, not going too high, even though we had to raise the floor. There are 7 trees that we analyzed on site. There are 2 street trees. There are 3 on the neighbor property, but we do impact those trees and wanted to make sure we protected them. We do, since we're accessing the alleyway, we had 2 trees in the alleyway we need to consider and address. We worked with the city arborist with that alley improvement. And we worked with transportation and public works. We wanted to make sure that even though we wanted to improve the alleyway per requested, that we weren't damaging the trees that are in the alleyway. We proposed a 13-foot wide width roadway. It'll be compacted AB with an aeration system underneath to make sure we're allowing drainage, we're allowing the roots to have the most benefit to live and survive. And we're looking at going around the tree in a certain area, making sure that we go to a minimum 10-foot wide roadway. That way we're not right next to the root collar and we're not damaging that critical root zone. We worked with the city arborist to know how far away from the tree on either side we should go, and it's 10 feet from the tree and over, that we're not paving as well, and we're not using that compacted AB. And the stretch of the alleyway that we'll be improving, and we've been requested to improve, is about over 100 feet and right at the edge of the end of our property line. That was a concern. We addressed it as best we could. We made sure that we wrote in our arborist report that we're protecting those trees. Another concern was the street trees next to the driveway. We reworked our plan to make sure that we saved those street trees, and we moved our driveway over to the right-hand side by the property line to make sure that we're not impacting that as well. We are we're along the existing driveway, so we're using that same apron location, driveway location. We are hugging the property line, but we are saving the tree. Another concern that was brought up was our stone veneer. We're showing a white brick veneer in our rendering. We hope that we wanted to make it a texture change, and we want to make sure that we're true to what's going on in the elevation. We have a raised floor foundation, so that brick or that veneer is showing that we're raised, and it's being true to what's going on in what we're trying to build. And then window types. We did look at our windows again. We removed some windows to make sure that we're proportionate and we're also respecting privacy. We're using single hung fiberglass windows, high quality, to make sure that we uphold windows over time, and we have minimal maintenance for the future homeowners. We have changed 2 of the windows on the front facade from the previous, back in 2019's proposal, just to make sure it was above the garage. There were actually 2 on that second story. We made it 1, try to be more proportional and create a better facade for the home. We did change some windows along the sides and raise the sills up to allow for more privacy. There is an egress window on the right-hand side that we left. It's a bedroom. We want to make sure we have egress. So that was the window that we left and didn't modify the sill on. And then our stair window, we have raised to a 9-foot sill from the landing. So that way we're not having privacy issues with that window. Materials we are using, as you can see on the rendering, there's a vertical siding and then a board and bat. It's more of a texture change. We're trying to create this farmhouse white color selection and make sure that we're softer in presence and not trying to do a drastic color change, even though we're having a material change. So more of a texture feel on the front, trying to add a little bit more interest with materials rather than color. We did have another concern throughout this process. Again, we've been working on it since 2019. We actually were at over 27 feet high. And we had a concern about massing, and so we brought down the overall height by 1 foot. We took height out of our plate heights and made sure that we lowered them in order to get down another foot in our overall height. And then there has been a concern that was recently brought up about the neighbor heritage trees along the right-hand side. We've been working with staff to look into how to protect those trees. We'll be protecting them, of course, during construction. And we're also going to be looking at, we do have a raised floor, so we don't have a slab that's going to be impacting those tree roots that are along the right-hand side as much. And it'll be something we'll have to look into once we break ground and see how to minimize and protect the roots that are there. And then we had a few neighbor comments with outreach. We reached out in 2019. I know it was by snail mail. There was a letter sent out. I thought there had been physical contact, but that could have, I don't have verification of that. I do know that we have sent out more of the newest and updated proposed project, one in September, and then again in November, because we updated the alleyway again and revised that proposal. We did have concerns from the next door neighbor about, again, the critical root zone of those heritage trees that are on that right-hand side, and the drip location of the drip line and gas line location. The gas line, we are connecting to the front and not going through that critical root zone. So that should be addressed. The AC units was something that the neighbor brought up as well. And we are showing 2 in this planning submittal. We actually are going to be having 1 in the building submittal. We've addressed that concern, and that should be following the city guidelines. And then daylight plane has been addressed. We lowered our 1 foot overall height, and so the daylight plane is now, we're away from being over that daylight plane line. And then we also addressed his demo concern. Remediation contractor removed asbestos and lead, and we provided a certificate of that completion and clarified the proper precautions we took and why they were on site at that time, and that we were not demoing any of the house. We were just making sure that the asbestos and lead, it's part of the process and it's required.
I'm sorry, Ms. Felver, did you just say you're not demoing any of the house?
That we were not at that time on July, what was it? July 2019, we were not demoing at that time. We were, had our remediation contractors, they were out there for asbestos and lead, not for the demo. So we're trying to clarify why our contractors were on the site in 2019 to the neighbor.
All right, so you're giving us a little bit of history.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions from our commission members? Mr. Gale.
Thank you. We'll follow up on a couple things I just heard. On the demolition, I saw a note and pictures that all the doors and windows are removed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why is that? Why are they removed if it's going to be sitting there for a while?
Cynthia, would you like to?
Yeah, if I may. So that is actually part of our lead and asbestos remediation work. Our processes will have them come out and they'll do an analysis of what contains lead and or asbestos. And then they will come back and remove anything that they find that is possibly hazardous. So that's part of our process before we actually pull the demo permit, so that when we do go to demolish the home, nothing is released into the air that could be toxic. And so we only remove what is, required per our contractor that does this work for us.
So was there lead in the windows? Is that why those were removed?
Correct,
okay.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to sit for a while. I'm just worried about, what could happen to an empty house. I also just heard about this, the stone facade. Is that, did you say there was a painted brick or a white brick?
It could be a white brick. I think that's what we're, in our material board, it shows a white brick.
Okay. I don't think we saw the material board, did we?
It was just up a moment ago.
But okay, it wasn't submitted, but you had it on the screen. Okay.
Correct.
And then the height reduction, what are the current ceiling heights on the first and second floor?
They're currently 9'1" or 9 feet.
Both floors are 9 feet?
Correct.
Great, okay. Couple specific questions. Could someone explain the courtyard and the porch next to each other? I'm not quite understanding what that is.
Jill, would you like to explain this? We have our architect, Jill Williams, with us.
So because of the raised wood floor and the distance we are off of grade, it does create a condition where trying to create that outdoor living does raise it off of grade. We wanted to have this great little front outdoor room that has the fireplace. It's got a vaulted ceiling. And then we actually have a wall separating that. Then as you come through the entry door, then you'll get this big reed out to this side entertaining space. So just trying to create a little bit of split between a little bit more of a little more public as far as the front porch goes to a more private outdoor space.
So, and there's a solid wall between the two, is that correct?
We did introduce that, yes.
Okay. Is there a plan to enclose that space at some point?
The front patio or the front porch? No.
Okay.
No.
On the front, are there closed soffits on the front? On the eaves?
We have not proposed that at this point.
Okay. I see a little shape at the eaves on the rake ends. Is that just a detail in the rake?
Exactly.
Okay. I'm curious about the two windows over the garage. Why are those there?
It was just a thought. The garage ceiling is very high due to the floodplain, right? The difference between the garage finish floor and the house plate line. And so it was just a little bit of a detail and to add a little bit of natural light into the garage.
It tends to emphasize the garage doors a little bit more than I think we'd like. Try to de-emphasize the garage if possible. I appreciate going down to one air conditioning condenser, and I don't know if there are other options to do that. Except, is it possible to move those closer away from the fence, closer to the wood deck?
I believe it is. We'll get
From
it from the neighbors.
It's on a raised platform because of the flood zone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because being raised up will not help the noise. So if you could shift that away, that would help a lot.
We certainly understand that, yes.
Okay. Awesome. I see double hung windows for egress at all the bedrooms. I'm just not sure that will meet the egress requirements. It's hard to get that with a double hung.
From our review of it, we believe we are fine. We'll certainly take another look, but we've checked that, but appreciate you bringing that up.
I just would hope that they don't get taller in the construction process just to meet egress.
Understand.
Okay. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Oh, I'm sorry. I blocked you with the floor plan. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for presenting your project to us this evening. Question about the front of the house and the de-emphasizing of the front door. Was that more a function of accommodating the desired floor plan, or is there an architectural design or element that you were shooting for?
Well, I think what we really wanted to do was capture that great front porch space that is truly a sitting porch. And so really looking at that single story element with the railing, with the fireplace, as capturing that inviting front. And so I guess just a choice of ours to utilize that as an inviting neighborhood piece.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question regarding the stone veneer, or it's shown as stone in the elevation we just looked at, but during the presentation, I understand it is brick. Can you tell me, does that brick go all the way to grade? Is there a foundation ledge for that concrete, for that brick? This ultimately is a construction drawings issue, but it very much reflects the planning issue. I see Ms. Williams nodding, probably familiar with the problem of having masonry that hovers above the ground.
Our favorite detail. So what we've looked at doing is to actually do a bit of an overpour on the footing, so that you might see the concrete coming out of the ground, but that it will appear that the brick is being, is sitting on that. So way back when, right, we would run it all the way down to grade, but now with the concern of it wicking up water, but we do want it to look supported. And so that's the detail we've been doing, is to do a bit of a ledge with the concrete footing.
That's a great answer, in my opinion. And then the vertical siding that you refer to, it took me a moment to think of the contrast when I was reading the text between board and batten and vertical siding. Then seeing the rendering, I have to say it looks a lot like T111. What's your intention there for the vertical siding?
To absolutely not look like T111. And so Hardy makes their upgraded series, their Artisan series. That is the only one that we and Thomas James Holmes would find acceptable for a vertical. It does have, it's smooth, it has a little deeper V groove to it. And so it's a really great look. And it's unfortunate that a lot of us can recall what T111 looks like. And so that's what we just think, that V groove, you'll get that shadow line, but it's very subtle as compared to the board and bat. And we really think it will give us a very clean finish look.
What is the interval for the V grooves?
I believe we've called out that it's 9 inches on center.
Oh, all right. The drawing made me think that it was, like 4 inches or something.
No, I don't believe it's that tight.
It's 9 inches.
9 inches.
Thanks, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't have any other questions for the moment. So let us go to public comment. We have one comment to be read by staff, and then for those who are watching, on your GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen, you should see a hand icon. If you would like to speak, if you click on that icon, I believe it will change to green and indicate to our staff that you would like to speak. This would be the time to speak on the project if you would like to do so via the internet connection. Alternatively, if you have a brief question or comment, you can use the chat box lower down in the control panel. So, Mr. Tapia, do we have any live commenters at the moment?
Good evening, Chair Riggs, fellow members of the commission, and members of the public. At this time, I am not seeing any comments or any written questions from members of the public, but we can give it, as usual, a second or two to see if any come through.
Well, we could give it 2 or 3 minutes. I believe you have a written comment from someone who is traveling outside the country and wanted to make comments on the project. Do you have that in hand?
I believe Matthew Pruder will go ahead and come on screen and read that aloud.
Thank you, Mr. Tapia, and thank you, planning commissioners. I will go ahead and read it this time. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit to read the text.
And would you mention the author as well?
Yes, of course. This is comment from Mr. Harold Sauersig, and he was hoping to be here, I believe, but I will be reading this comment letter due to his absence at this moment. We would like to thank the Menlo Park City Council and Planning Commission for the opportunity to present our objections to the building plan for 505 Central Avenue. 1. Detrimental impact of the construction on critical root zone and canopy of 3 heritage trees on the property of 511 Central Avenue. 2. Gas line omitted from building plans. 3. Noise pollution caused by the proposed dual unit HVAC system placed in close proximity to the neighbors. First, the building plans pose a severe threat to the long-term health and survival of our heritage trees. The arborist report concluded that all 3 heritage trees located on 511 Central Avenue will suffer from a moderate impact to their critical root zone due to foundation excavation, and in addition, moderate impact to their canopy due to the building encroachment. Damage to the critical root zone is a serious danger to these trees, analogously to damage to vital organs in our cells. Per the arborist report, our native oak trees are easily damaged or killed by having the soil within the critical root zone disturbed or compacted. Oaks are fragile giants that can take little change in soil grade or compaction. The damage and distress sustained by the critical root zone may well result in the decline and eventual death of the trees. This will pose a danger to buildings and inhabitants and necessitate eventual removal of these heritage trees. When we remodeled our own home, the planning division told us that we need to build the addition to our home to be away from the critical root zone. We would like to ask that the same standards be applied to professional home builders. In the case of heritage tree removal, the City of Menlo Park first requires that all reasonable alternatives be considered before removal. Shouldn't the same policy apply to a plan with a significant chance of heritage tree damage and eventual death? We ask that the City Council request that Thomas James present a reasonable design alternative that will not endanger the long-term health and survival of all our heritage trees. Second, we request that Thomas James clearly establishes the location of the gas line on their plans and construct the gas line outside the critical root zone of the 3 heritage trees. Third, the plan includes 2 HVAC condensers directly next to our backyard patio on a several feet high concrete pad, projecting our backyard patio to the full extent of the noise. Thomas James has made no effort to find an alternative placement. We appeal to the council to please request that Thomas James place these 2 HVAC condenser units in a location where there is less noise pollution affecting the direct neighbors, and that noise of both units together can at no time exceed the limits specified by the city ordinance. To conclude, we have 3 main concerns with the currently submitted plans: the effect of the home construction on the health of our trees, the effect of the potential gas line trench on the health of our trees, and the noise pollution caused by the proposed location of 2 HVAC condensers. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Angelica Yaries and Harold Sauresig. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pruder. And Mr. Tapia, do we have any live commenters tonight?
I can confirm at this time that there are no additional comments, Chair Riggs.
All right, well, then I will close public comment and we'll bring it back to the commission for comments, questions, or motions. Mr. Kale.
Thank you. I appreciate, Chair Riggs, you're talking about the siding. I'm looking at a picture of the, maybe this is not the right product, but it's a James Hardy Aspire collection with the V grooves, and I'm not a big fan of this look. It does look like T111 from a distance. Is there any reason why we can't use a panel with a batten, like a 1x2 or 1x3 batten instead?
Ms. Williams.
So we, no, there is no reason. We have that on the home. We were looking for a little differentiation. But Anna or Cynthia, if you have any input otherwise, I would not have any issue with changing that if that's the desire of the commission.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. Unless there's a better picture, it looks like T111. I don't know how else to put it.
And you are looking at the Aspire series?
Yes, yes, in a vertical orientation. Sorry. There was the neighbor's letter talked about the gas line. Has that been addressed? That is a good concern about how the trenching will work.
Yes, if I may. Oh. The gas meter is located on the front right side of the home. and the gas line is in the street in front, which is on Central. And so the gas line will run directly from that front corner to the street, and it will not impact any trees anywhere near it.
So it's not on site.
No, I think there might have been some concern that it would go to the back alley, but actually it's going to come forward towards Central, and so will not impact any trees.
Okay, great. And then just could you speak a little bit to the neighbor's concern about the tree protection zone? It is close where the addition is, and there is a deep footing going to be there. I know the arborist and the city arborist will look at it, but if you could,
Yep.
you could address it.
Definitely.
So our arborist looked at the construction plans, existing trees, and looked at the impact that would and how we could follow that for the tree protection plan, but also how do we look at this for our foundation? We're going to stake out that foundation, again, a raised foundation, and analyze the roots that are in those certain areas to give us a better idea of what the impact would be on those trees and how to proceed forward. We need to know what's actually where that existing foundation will be. And we do have an existing home in place. So we want to make sure that we're able to stake out our corners and then also analyze. We do have an idea of when we do determine where the roots are relative to the proposed house, that we can design around them, looking at maybe another situation of a grade beam, and seeing if that with piers and seeing the distance between them, working out ways to make sure we can minimize the impact it would have on that root zone.
Okay, thank you. So I have no more questions, and I have just some general comments, and I'll make a motion. So I think in the positive column, I think the front massing works really well, especially given that you're starting at about 3.5 feet above the grade level due to the flood zone. And I appreciate your willingness to shift the condenser and as well as go to a board and batten siding. On the drawback, I'm not quite sure about that front porch. If I can see someone coming in at a later date and enclosing that and make that an enclosed living space, and I have some concern about how that will look. I'm not too sure about the two windows over the garage door. I think that emphasizes the garage too much. And my last comment is the gable end detail we talked about a little earlier. That's usually needed when there's a transition from a closed soffit to a gable end. And since there's not a closed soffit, I just trying to keep it in the modern farmhouse style, trying to keep it simple. I would just recommend Googling something called the pork chop gable return. And there's nothing positive when you look at that. So it's just a way to look at how this gable end returns. With all that said, I think the project's very approvable, and I'd make a motion to approve with the condition of the air conditioner condenser shifted away from this property line, and the change of materials from the hardy to a board and batten with an actual 1x batten.
And I will step forward to second this motion with the request of the maker. Would you like to also include a modification to the wide-spaced windows over the garage door?
You mean removing them?
Well, or changing it to a single window or paired windows. I have to agree, the proportions are a problem, though I understand the desire to place something there due to the height above the garage door head. On a couple of previous projects, we simply increased the garage door from a 7-foot to an 8-foot door. That was one option. Then possibly a single window or a different window shape, or even a decorative attic vent, all are options. And I hate to put an architect on the spot to choose from multiple options and then be stuck with it. So if Ms. Williams or the other members of the project team would prefer, this could be a request for a response via the planning division, via Mr. Pruder, to be approved at that level. And getting back to Mr. Kale, does that make sense, or should we be more specific?
I didn't want to add it as a condition just so there is some design flexibility. So I appreciate your approach to it, and I agree. I think we should let the applicant propose something and have the staff review it. So I agree to your amendment.
All right, thank you. And then we have a motion on the table, but I, for one, actually have a couple more questions. I think, oh, maybe just one more question. The stairwell window, and I apologize, I usually have my laptop so that I don't have to cover up all of the participants on GoToMeeting in order to look at the plan. But the stairwell looked to the left. No, it looks to the right. All right, other commissioners can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the right side is the better landscaped side. Can the applicant confirm that there's current growth on the right side property line? I see a nod from Ms. Tebow. I thought that's what I remembered.
That is correct. Yeah, those are the 3 trees that we are planning to protect and retain.
All right, and I see that there's a beginning growth of pittosporum or something that the neighbor has planted. So there's a little head start on that. All right, I don't have any other questions. Any others from members of the commission? All right, then let's move ahead with the vote. We have a motion on the table to approve a use permit, including alley access and with modifications listed versus the staff report by the applicant to the alley paving, and that there will be 1 condenser unit rather than 2. And then with the conditions tonight to relocate that condenser unit for better acoustics, to modify the twin windows over the garage for aesthetics, and to replace the Hardy vertical panel with the board and batten. All right, have I missed anything, Mr. Kale?
Nope, you got it.
All right, in that case, let us vote, starting with Mr. Barnes. It's an aye. And Mr. DeCarty. Mr. DeCarty, I don't see you on screen.
You're recused.
Oh, that's right, got a short memory, thank you. Mr. Doran. It's an up. Mr. Kale.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Ms. Tate. Thumbs up. And I vote in favor. So we have an approval, effectively unanimous, 5-0 with 1 recusal and 1 absence. Congratulations. Thank you for bringing this project forward and for your working with our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, Matt, who put in a lot of work on this project. We really appreciate it.
All right, way to go, Matt.
Mhm.
All right,
you.
so that concludes item F2. We'll move on to item F4. F3 was continued to a future meeting for reasons that you no doubt will read in the newspaper before long. Item F4 is an architectural control and use permit. Applicant City of Menlo Park for 110 Terminal Avenue. This is a request for architectural control to demolish the existing Onetta Harris Community Center, Menlo Park Senior Center, Bellhaven Youth Center, and Bellhaven Pool, and construct a new multi-generational facility incorporating all of the existing uses plus a branch library on a lot in the PF Public Facilities District. The proposal includes a request for a use permit for the use and storage of hazardous materials, including pool chemicals and diesel fuel for a backup generator. The Planning Commission will serve as a recommending body, and the City Council will be the final decision-making body and take action on the proposed project at a future meeting date. And Mr. Turner, I believe this is your project.
Yes, good evening, Chair Riggs and Commissioners. I do have a couple updates to the staff report. First, I want to add that in the hazardous materials portion of the report, it notes that we had only heard back from the fire district as of the publication of the staff report. We have since heard back from the West Bay Sanitary District as well, giving their preliminary approval of the hazardous materials for the project. We also received one piece of public comment after some publication of the staff report in the form of an email that was sent to the Planning Commission. It was generally positive. The sender was very excited that the project was coming to Bellhaven and expressed their gratitude for Facebook and the city for proposing a state-of-the-art library facility and multi-generational campus. And I will be reading that email in its entirety during the public comment period. So today we also have Chris Lamb, our Assistant Public Works Director, with us, representative from Facebook, Fergus O'Shea, and representative from Hart Howerton, Aaron Ashley. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions of staff.
Thank you. And do we have any questions? All right, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant then. Welcome, Mr. O'Shea. Welcome, Mr. Ashley.
Good evening. Just confirming with staff that there's no staff report first. It's our presentation.
That's
Correct.
a presentation, yes.
That's correct? Okay. That's correct. Okay, great. Okay, great. Good evening, Commissioners. Chair Riggs, I'm Fergus O'Shea, Director with Facebook's facilities team here in Menlo Park. So it's good to see you all. I hope you're all keeping well. So we're glad to be back tonight. We were last with you about 2 months ago for a study session for the project, and we're looking forward to sharing our final design with you this evening. I have a few comments, and then Erin is going to be presenting the project. So, since 2011, Facebook has called Menlo Park home, and from the beginning, we've been humbled by the community support for our past projects here in Menlo Park. But the transformation of the old TE factory into what it is today, the expected opening of the Bayfront Bridge and Public Park next year, and we hope delivering this facility in early 2023 will be another addition to the community we call home. This is a unique project for us. This facility is not tied to any development agreement. It's an investment in the community for the community. It's a project I'm very personally vested in delivering. So we wouldn't be here today with the help of a lot of people, and I'd like to take this opportunity here just to acknowledge a few of those folks. So over the last 15 months, there's been a lot of effort by a lot of people, and it really has been a community effort. We've got hundreds of community members attend our outreach meetings. One of these projects does take the effort of the entire community. I want to thank a few key people, Rose Bickerstaff and Rachel Bickerstaff, along with Cheryl and Harry Bims, which have helped us create a vision for this project, along with John Tananis, who was involved a lot at the initial visioning stages of the project. City staff have worked super hard and very quickly. They've really adjusted to, obviously with all the projects, but for us to moving quickly on a schedule that we've outlined was obviously delayed a little bit by what's happened this year with COVID, but we are moving forward. And they've put in a lot of work, especially Justin, Kristen, and Sean. So I want to thank also the city council, especially Mayor Taylor, Councilmember Carlton for serving in the subcommittee, and of course thank our own Facebook team members and our consultant team. What I believe here, what we'll see tonight is they've designed what is going to be a great facility. So I hope with your blessing tonight we'll move along with the project to the City Council next month, and then their goal will be to hopefully start construction by the middle of next year. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Fergus. Good evening. Nice to see you all again. I don't need to go into any more detail, I guess, than you all need. Most of this has been sent to you ahead of time, but I thought it might be helpful to just quickly recap some of the things we talked about the last time we were together. Since we met, in addition to your feedback, there's been council meetings, a regular slate of staff meetings and working sessions with operators and other people who really have their hands in this facility. So I wanted to kind of share some of that with you, and then briefly walk you through our current design. It's the last time we were together, I think I caveated that we were really trying to get you all up to speed with the community engagements that we had been doing, the programming, and how the community really informed that. And I'll say preliminary architecture, right? Primarily the massing. And you all had a lot of terrific feedback, really insightful questions that helped us kind of go back and scratch our heads a little bit. As a reminder, the community engagement we did through a series of meetings last winter that really built on some of the early sessions we'd had with members of the community more than a year ago. And some of their key pieces were, I guess, expected and some were unexpected, and they came through the form of Post-it notes and sketches and conversations. But effectively, these items for each of these sort of key program areas really became central to our thinking and the programming, and pushed us and staff and kind of really to sort of understand, prioritize, and think a little bit differently about the facilities than say what's out there today. Out of our last conversation with you all, and then sort of the immediate follow-up with the city council meetings on some of the extras, these are things that the city is really committed to above and beyond what was in the Facebook offer. It's going to be a pretty phenomenal building. Right now, LEED Platinum, enormous commitment to solar. In addition to sort of the Menlo Park all electric, we're looking at a microgrid. We're looking at enhancements to the structural, mechanical systems to make this a Red Cross emergency shelter. So again, kind of bulking up the design above what's certainly code, but even above best practice. Some of the questions that came from members of the Planning Commission around, do the seniors really still have dedicated space here? I'll talk about that as we go through, because part of this proposal is asking the seniors to abandon a building that's literally called the Senior Center, and to share with other members of the community. And certainly there's an ask there, and we're also thinking there's a great benefit. One of those questions around seniors had to do with the walking distance from the front door to the bathroom. In the appendix of the presentation, I put some dimensions that shows it's a little bit further from the men, it's a little bit shorter for the women, but happy to get into that later. there was a question from a few of you about architecture and making sure that this is a dynamic enough architecture and not playing it too safe, but also a recognition that with warm, inviting materials, this is going to feel pretty good. And then, you know, lots of little observations which you all provided around, you know, is this an easy place for families to change? Is it flexible? Which interestingly were similar questions we got from staff and operator discussions. You know, do we have enough family restrooms? Do we have enough showers? Are we too many bathrooms? Not enough bathrooms? Are the dimensions right? We really sweated this thing down over the last few months to kind of, one, make sure we're prioritizing square footage, which comes at a real cost premium, and two, functionality. You know, we had an initial idea in the library that a central series of rooms, you know, little study rooms and a conference room might be an interesting idea to create more zone around it. Well, we heard loud and clear, you know, we need sight lines. We want to be able to control this. There's better ways to operate this. And so we've evolved the plan accordingly. So we're, you know, just as kind of a reminder, this is the site today on the existing swimming pool, Onetta Harris, the senior center, the field. Obviously, the tennis courts are out beyond. Our site, the last time we saw you, was really, didn't include the track. And now, as we've looked at a more aggressive solar proposal, we're now proposing sort of solar car shades that extend down along the field. And obviously, we continue to work with PG&E, Beechwood School, and other agencies to try to understand, you know, all the challenges that either lay underground or just above the parking lot here. So the proposed site plan, very much like the last time you all saw it, I guess the biggest differences are we're showing these solar car shades outside the PG&E easement, also sort of going down along the field. We continue to maintain these existing redwood trees. Obviously, from the tree removal plan, you've seen that the new site plan removes a lot of trees. Sorry, my mouse got a little jumpy there. We will continue to note the pool as sort of not a part for this current exercise. The pool is on a parallel, although slightly lagging track as an element that the city's financing. And so we're separately going through a programming exercise and a design exercise for the pools. It's all the same team, it's just on a slightly different track. But of course, those pools will utilize the locker rooms and changing rooms and lifeguard room that's in this building. So the current thinking for the solar car shades, you know, very much like other places around town. Obviously, there's work to be done on exactly how the frame is going to work, but we wanted to at least share with you the scope of this proposal. You'll see in the roof plan, it's complemented by a significant amount of coverage of the roof, which is also proposed to be solar. You know, very much the way we discussed last time, and though it's a very easy to find, easy to navigate parking lot. We've been working through with Samtrans, the bus that provides rides to seniors, the Beechwood School and how their morning drop-off and staff parking would share this lot. We've been working through service and servicing requirements around the microgrid and some of these other functionalities of being an all-electric building. The biggest change that you see here is we've gone from 2 entries to a single, easy-to-identify entry, and we think that this is good for a number of reasons. Certainly, staff was keen to see that. You know, very similar to last time in terms of how the organization works, where you know, we're putting names on these things, and I'd say the biggest difference, right, from what it is today to what we're proposing is today you have multiple facilities that each have hours of operations, and they sit fallow for significant chunks of time during any given day or week. What we've all been keen to think about this facility as is a very well used, well loved. So a room that's really terrific for seniors to have, you know, activities and lunch in on a weekday. It's a great spot for a community event on the evening or a weekend. You know, children's library, that's a terrific place in the morning for little kids, can be used in conjunction with the youth center in the afternoon for after school programs. And so how do we get these places to do double duty? But I think one of the outcomes of the last several months at least is that the organization of uses and the sort of interrelationship of these uses is working really well from an operational standpoint. So again, the idea is and kind of consistent with the feedback we've gotten from the community, is a warm, inviting, contemporary facility, a place that feels really unique and special, and people get excited about it. And so, as you arrive from the neighborhood, there's this great deep porch, very transparent, welcoming ground floor. We have used a lot of glass in and around the entryway. You'll see that there's more sort of solid masonry-like elements to the wings, and then a metal system that's heavily glazed that really sort of sets off this library and this collaboration space upstairs. So again, this deep porch that I described, there's room for a handful of bike racks here, there's additional bike racks here, but a great place to be able to kind of wait for someone to pick you up or meet and hang out with a friend before you come in together. We wanted the children's library to be front and center, sort of opens up a little bit, place to park strollers, clear staff as you come in. The staff is really a control point for who goes upstairs, who comes into the locker rooms and out to the pool or into the gym. We explored whether or not that there should be a hallway that bypasses the locker rooms to go straight to the pool. Staff felt very strongly that a gate that could be managed and kind of manned by the staff in the sort of peak summer hours was better than dedicating hallway space. We've been able to expand senior support facilities. So this senior lounge is really just kind of a cool hangout. In the evenings, I imagine, when seniors maybe aren't as present here, it's just a really great spot for community to spend time. It kind of doubles as pre-function. The senior dining, again, with kind of two complementary outdoor spaces, really extends the room, basically doubles the size of the room. Children's library has a big outdoor space, much of which is covered. So even in inclement weather, you can let them run. If you have little kids like me, you know how valuable that is. And then the youth center, which as part of the youth center regulations, has to have a certain amount of square footage dedicated to outdoor play. Upstairs, so as you arrive, one of the things we wanted to do was kind of use the transparency of the arrival experience with this really sort of connective elevation feature inside. And so we're showing this sort of curving, really elegant wall. We think it has a wood finish, some really kind of special moments that sort of shine a light, like it's a little rigging niche inside the children's library as it transitions to the seniors area. Unlike a traditional library, where every book is effectively under lock and key and you have to check it out, the idea here is that there will be a lot of sort of books throughout, and that in some cases there'll be an honor system to take away books. So obviously this is still being explored with staff, but I think there'll be a different relationship of people and literature in this facility than we've seen before. Upstairs, so this big open stair lands at the top floor to sort of avoid the thumping of teenage feet coming up and down the stairs and disturbing people spending time in the library. There's a glass door system that separates the library from the corridor. I think since the last time we shared it, we flipped the movement studio, put a big piece of glass so that when this gets used by little kids' dance classes, parents can line up in the extra wide hallway and watch their kids perform. But when it's a grown-up yoga class, we can pull the shades so nobody has to be on exhibition. Fitness here. Series of flexible classrooms. The idea is that this is less like a traditional lending library and much more like a place to gather. So whether you're gathering for a class, you're gathering to learn, you're gathering to study together, or honestly, for a lot of the week, this will be an extension of the seniors center. So today, all the spaces in the senior center are really the precinct of the seniors. We see this entire library is really kind of expanding on what the senior offering is. Again, in section, I think Chair Riggs observed this the last time. We've used a generous floor-to-floor height on both floors to really invite daylight in from both sides. We want this library to have an east and a west orientation. You can find sun, you can find shade. Same with the children's library. The senior dining and community room is more than a floor high. It's really almost a floor and a half. The gymnasium's double height. Everything else is a generous 1-story. You know, we top out at just about 40 feet to the top of our stair tower. Our current allocation of solar is shown here in white. Current mechanical systems over the top of the commercial kitchen that supplies the senior dining room. We've got additional mechanical. I think you'll see later we've got a full height wall around the service yard in a material to match the building, just to make sure all that stuff is tucked away. So anyway, we're really excited. We've had a terrific time working with staff on sort of the bones of the building. And then since the last time we saw you, we've really been able to flesh out the look and feel. So again, the idea is a contemporary building with warm, sort of natural feeling materials. Upon arrival, this metal skin that sort of describes the library, and very glazy. The soffit underneath is envisioned to be wood. That mix of metal and kind of metal panel and glass that describes the library. The kinds of material palette that we imagine in the site as you come up to it. We've set that off of a more masonry feel. So the kind of big flanking subordinate elements, the gymnasium and the kitchen, we're proposing to do in stucco. The senior dining room and the fitness wing, we're proposing, you know, if this was a college, we'd be showing Indiana limestone or something really, but we think it's a stone-like, whether it's a porcelain stone tile or another panel, something that feels stone, that also works with the budgets that we're exploring, but something that has that kind of character. I think you'll see in the next image that we think that those can start to complement each other and work pretty well. Again, using some wood and soffits to sort of set off of what otherwise might be kind of more of a stone metal vocabulary. The pool, you know, it's not a resort, but it is California, and so how do we create an environment that people really want to be at and spend time at, and extend the swim culture here from just going back and forth in the lane to spending time and hanging out with people. And so we're looking at a furnishing concept that has a mix of sort of gather around picnic tables under umbrellas to a place that you can actually catch some sun before and after being in the pool. Obviously, the fitness rooms look over it. A series of these niches that describe sort of how you get to family restrooms, the locker rooms, staff areas. We've got the lifeguard here. Again, in terms of finishes, obviously the pool is on a parallel track, and so I'm not showing you that, but even the coursing of the stone tile that we're thinking about for this wing, we again, trying to mix it up to create a rhythm and a scale, even with a material that maybe is more cost appropriate. This is probably my favorite space off the senior dining room here. This is the senior lounge here. It's this really great terrace. It's got a pergola. It's got some crepe myrtles and some other, I think one oak that'll grow up to give it some shade. Great place to extend the lunch scene here for seniors. Kind of bring together the various materials, again, sort of mimicking what's happening on fitness in terms of the elevation. And then I think what's great about this is it's like perfectly positioned as a pre-function cocktail, outdoor dining that really sort of in the evenings and then on the weekends when community events happen here, it's a really terrific space for all sorts of activities. And so it's these spaces that can kind of play from day to night, weekday to weekend, that we're getting excited about for this. Lastly, the park elevation, so the Kelly Park side, where we've got the youth center, again, this library language that lays up on top. Here there's a terrace for the maker space. We've done some articulation to the gymnasium here, but wanted to remind you that there's these large existing redwoods on that side of the building. So here, kind of the big library move, creating the shaded outdoor children's library garden. This is the opportunity for a mural. We think there could be a really cool art program here throughout the building that features sort of local community history. We don't know what this mural would be, but we think it's just a pretty interesting canvas for that sort of plays between the youth center, which is right here, and the children's library. And then here you see this makerspace terrace outside where we really wanted this opportunity for art projects and other kinds of events. You could have a evening sort of wine and craft night that could spill out to the terrace and overlook the park. And I think the materials here start to mimic what's happening, the existing redwoods, and thinking about a playground and sort of facilities that start to tie that in. So we started to show this in our last session. We're still working through with the city in terms of what the character of this playground is. It's a playground that should be open to the community when it's not sort of operated as the youth center. And so how does it feel cool and natural and creative and a fun place to climb around? And it's all around the feet of these existing redwoods. So it seems like it could be a great opportunity for a unique playground. And, I think just kind of summarizing that the 2 stories, indoor, outdoor, relatively simple massing moves, we think it fits well within the height and the setting that's already established there at the park, and really starts to connect to the park in a terrific way. The rest of this deck was really just there as points of reference from some of the questions that have come up before. Obviously, the sort of tertiary facades. This one, the large gymnasium, we located next to the PG&E substation as a buffer to the substation. So this view is primarily afforded to the substation. And then we've gone to the lengths of putting a full height wall around the service yard with a gate, just to make sure that significant investment in equipment for an electrical building of this sort is all shielded. And then the rest of these slides, which I think you would have seen in the deck, were just kind of more of reference, and I'm happy to talk to them if you'd like, but I think I'll just finish with the last slide in the deck, which was the schedule. Fergus, I don't know if you want to jump back in.
So I think what the goal, as I mentioned earlier on in the comments, was that we hopefully we'll have approval by next month, and the plan then is to start demolition in the summer, and construction will take about 18 months, and then hopefully opening the facility in Q1 2023. So just a little bit over 2 years from now.
We're happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you so much. It is always inspiring to see just the range of what is involved here in our community center. Commission members, any questions or comments before I go to public comment? Mr. Kale.
Thank you. So I can't say enough positive things about this. So just keep that in mind as I have a few questions for you. The last time we talked a little bit about how it felt kind of boxy, and I think you've done a lot to alleviate that, and it feels much more warm and inviting. But the one area is the entry, perhaps. I'm looking at drawing F30, the perspective of the entry. And it just feels like to me, it seems a little understated, and I don't know if that's something that can be addressed with massing or materials, or maybe something as simple as an awning. But I think it just needs a little more emphasis for a visual cue of where the entry is, and you've done a great job with the deep recess and going from 2 doors to 1 door, and that wood wall beyond will be really attractive. But I think it really needs to be a focal point, easily identifiable from the parking lot or as you enter the space. And just was curious what your thoughts were, and had you looked at doing something a little different there?
Yeah, thanks for that. It is understated, and we intentionally stripped the signage out of the rendering. And I actually think this is one of those instances where the rendering doesn't do you much justice. But the section, which is on page 16 of my pack, it's a really deep porch. And so I think in actuality with the wood soffit above this 16 or 18 foot covered porch, signage on that key element you kind of see flanking, you'll see the stair climbing behind the glass. I actually think, and then the wood obviously beyond the glass. I think it's much more dynamic, but I look at this rendering and the glass reflectivity got cranked up too high and it feels a little colder. So I absolutely hear what you're saying. I don't know that the awning's right, only because it has this, really deep, effective awning. But let us think about that a little bit, because you're right. It needs to be welcoming, and the rendering certainly doesn't do it justice.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, just think about that, please. And my question is, a big part of this is this entrance sequence is that the pool, I think, is right to your left in the rendering I'm looking at. What's the fence going to be like? Will that be something that's open and transparent so that you could see what's happening in the pool, or will it be a tall wall, or what's the idea there?
Yeah, you can. Let me see if I can go to the rendering here. It's an open fence with layers of planting in front of it. You can get an idea of it here. So it's open. Obviously, we've got a 5-foot requirement. We wanted to layer it up. It's a mix of being able to to make it easy to identify the pool and not put people on exhibit who are at the pool. And so that's why we wanted to keep a pretty deep planting zone there, so we can layer up planting and get some kind of natural coverage without having to go to a solid fence.
Okay, yeah, I would just suggest something that has some visual cue other than just an audio cue that there's a pool beyond there. I think that would help the overall experience for people coming in. But thank you very much.
I think you'll still see through it. It's still a picket. It just has layers of landscape in front of it.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? All right. We should go to public comment. I don't think I've done that yet. So for those listening or watching, the right of your screen is your GoToWebinar control panel. On there, there is a hand icon. And if you click on that, that will let us know that you would like to speak. The public can speak up to 3 minutes, although don't feel that you need the whole 3 minutes. We welcome comment. If you hesitate to use that system, or if it's being troublesome, there's also a chat box on the lower third of the GoToWebinar control panel where you could ask a question or make a general comment. Let us know if you would like to weigh in. And Mr. Tapia, do we have any indications of a desire to comment?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. At this time, I am showing 2 virtual hands raised, so I will go ahead and introduce the first speaker. So Rachel Bickerstaff, you now have the ability to activate your microphone.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Bickerstaff. I did submit a letter to the Planning Commission, and I'm not sure if it was submitted in time for you to, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. To our City of Menlo Park Planning Commissioners, I'm Rachel Bickerstaff, 28-year resident of the City of Menlo Park in the Belhaven neighborhood. My public comment is regarding item F4. I'm tremendously excited about this project. The Belhaven Neighborhood Association was happy to be the platform used to announce Facebook's proposal to construct a new multi-generational campus of this magnitude. We have been waiting for a state-of-the-art library for all to enjoy for many, many years. Finally, our voices have been heard to have it placed in the perfect location in our neighborhood near Kelly Park. We all know placing it there didn't make sense when the current buildings there needed to be remodeled. I'm mentioning all of this to really give everyone the history of how long we have been waiting and needing some type of educational component accessible to all other than Beechwood School. We are asking you to recommend to the City Council approval of permits for this project. I want to thank Facebook, Fergus, Erin, for your designs and really incorporating everything that we hope and want and need in our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bickerstaff. And we have a second commenter.
Yes, that is correct. I will now go ahead and introduce Cheryl Bims. You now should have the ability to activate your microphone.
Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Cheryl Bims, resident of Menlo Park. I have been proud to just be a part of just this project from the inception of it. But more importantly, I'm excited, elated, overjoyed that our city is going to see a public benefit that is right here in the community that has really bore a lot of the impacts of the development. I know that this particular project is appropriate and commensurate with what we have been experiencing. So I can't say anything other than I am so excited. This project has been one of the consistent bright spots of 2020 for me, and that's saying a lot because sometimes bright spots have been hard to find during this COVID season. And I do want to also just say thank you to Facebook, Hart Howerton, the city staff, our elected officials, and our appointed officials, and last but not least, the residents of Menlo Park, because truly the catalyst for seeing this come forth. But again, it's a community project, and it takes all of us, and I really believe that one day we're going to all enjoy this. So thank you to everyone, and I look forward to this moving through the process as smoothly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I have to admit, I'm looking forward to it too. It's going to be tough to wait another 2 years. Mr. Tapia, before we go to the written comment, do we have any more live?
Yes, we do have another speaker. I will go ahead and introduce him at this time. So Pamela Jones, you do have the ability to activate your microphone at this time.
Good evening, commissioners and Misters O'Shea and Ashley. I too think this is a wonderful project, but I would not be who I am if I didn't point out some things that unfortunately I didn't see earlier. And I noticed that we actually have lost square footage from the amount that we had adding in the Bellhaven library at the school, because the new project actually has stairwells that reduce the square footage. And it looks like that has been taken from the area for the seniors because they've lost space. And they're sharing portions such as the restrooms. It appears that the restrooms are being shared by the seniors, children, and youth. And when you're a senior, you know you cannot use youth bathrooms. You know, so if I'm correct with seeing that, I think that's going to be a challenge. I hope that the staff, when you look at usage, that the senior area is one in which you can really call home. So which means that if other people are using the space, that they put it back together the way they found it when they entered, because the seniors have felt that it was their home. And this is one of the things that they talked about, that they felt that they were going to lose with this project. It wasn't so much having a new facility, but it was what they potentially can lose. The other thing is when and I may be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like the library on the second floor is that if that's open so that you can actually look down at the stairwell and the entranceway to the bathrooms. I think that is a real challenge because I know I don't want anybody above me looking at me walking into the bathroom. So I hope that I didn't see that correctly. It may be too late to address some of these things, but I felt it was important that this information be pointed out and be a part of the record. So again, I do thank you for the project, and if there's any way that some of these things can be addressed, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. And once again, Mr. Tapia, do we have any more commenters?
At this time, Chair Riggs, I am not showing any additional commenters. And then one note I do want to add is that the public comment that our staff member, Christopher Turner, was going to read was actually the first speaker that we heard tonight.
Oh, so we are covered. All right, very good. All right, then I think that's my cue to close public comment period and bring it back to the commissioners, remembering that this review leads to a recommendation to the City Council regarding the findings and actions for approval. Any further or specific comments on this project, Mr. DeCardi?
Yeah, good evening. I just echo my thanks for all your effort. And I appreciate, Mr. Ashley, your presentation and referencing back to our earlier discussion that made it very easy to follow. And it's clear you continue to take into consideration not just our feedback, but the community, which is the critical piece on this, and to incorporate that. So I just overall really enthusiastic about the project, and even more so because it looks like you continue to make it a priority with really making it rooted with the community that's going to use it. I've got one question and then one just brief comment or suggestion. So the question is related to the energy use and to the diesel generator. Can you somebody walk me through what's the emergency backup with the diesel generator for? How much power over what period of time is it designed to deliver? And if you've got otherwise a 100% clean energy building, one to be extraordinarily proud of, and you've got solar and a microgrid and some battery storage, how can't you meet the emergency needs with the battery? And just to understand that.
I don't feel qualified to answer that one, Fergus. Maybe Justin Murphy does.
Yeah, I was going to I hope Justin maybe can speak to maybe some of the thoughts around a diesel generator. Chris, that'd be awesome.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Lamb, Assistant Public Works Director, and I'll try and save Justin from popping on just yet. And I've been working with the design team, mechanical engineers, our own sustainability folks, and looking at the different project goals as they revolve around the microgrid and the solar. So the idea behind the microgrid is kind of it's twofold. It's one to help better utilize both the on-site solar generation. So kind of looking at the generation as it's comes on during the day and saving the energy and using it again at night, but then also reserving some of that solar generation and keeping it in reserve to power the building in case we do have a sustained outage. The analysis that we did on the microgrid showed that for most of the year, that yes, with the amount of solar that we're planning for the facility and the levels at which the building will operate, For most of the year, we can power the facility completely with the solar and the microgrid battery backup. There are times though, particularly in the winter, or if we have like this year and in a lot of years the heavy smoke coverage where the solar generation may not be able to meet the emergency power needs of the facility. And so it's close, but we're not quite there. And so that's where the emergency generator comes into play. And it's why we've selected a smaller generator and a portable generator, so that you know, if things improve down the road and it's not and we don't find that we're needing the generator in these emergency situations, something that could be removed from the site or utilized at a different location. But from what we've modeled so far on the project, we want to use caution, especially when we're talking about utilizing the facility as a potential Red Cross emergency shelter, and making sure that we can power the facility, you know, particularly when the community really needs it.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, Mr. Lamb. That was an excellent and comprehensive answer. I really appreciate it and appreciate the thoughtfulness. In the staff report, it said it was to be determined whether it would be placed permanently on site or would be portable. It makes a world of sense that it's portable. You can imagine over time that you'll have a different, more environmentally responsible or economical emergency power source that you could also bring in that was portable and make that switch as well. So that's great. And then just my final comment on this back is Menlo Park is and will continue to be a national leader, especially in its built environment, about energy use. What you're doing in this building is going to be a hallmark of that commitment. And I really encourage you to prominently place somewhere some public education that can share how you can have an extraordinarily livable building. In fact, one that is more livable because of the considerations of design to let in the natural light, all the things that you did in order to earn those points for LEED Platinum, and to blend with the very high standards that Menlo Park has put in place. Menlo Park and you should rightly be proud of that and should find some educational way to let that be shared with all visitors. I encourage you to do that. And then my last thing is much more prosaic. But as you've introduced the solar carports, and when you have them extended along the length of the field and the track, you've now introduced some shading that is normally it hasn't been there. And right now there is a small viewing stand, and quite often it is unbelievably hot there. And when people come to see it, they swelter. You're either inadvertently going to have people stealing underneath that carport in order to get shade, in order to watch what's going on with people they're viewing playing sports, or you might find a way to consider extending it or finding some bump out or some way to, as long as you're building a structure there, give just a little bit of a lip of shading for some kind of seating, and it might be hugely appreciated by people who are coming to watch soccer or lacrosse or track or everything else that's there. So just for your consideration, but mostly I'm just wholeheartedly enthusiastic about your work. Mr. O'Shea, you said this is something that feels like the pinnacle of your career. I think I'm paraphrasing there, and I think you rightly can be proud of it, you and the whole team. Looking forward to supporting you enthusiastically.
All right, well said. And other comments from commissioners? All right, then I'll just weigh in. I have to agree with, most significantly, I have to agree with praise for the design effort, and not to mention the backing of our friends at Facebook. I think we know that good concepts and good ideas can be talked about for literally decades in a city environment. It takes a different kind of backing to actually make things happen. And I think Facebook will always be remembered, at least in part. Their history will be that they made this happen. I also get the sense, I don't want to jump ahead of 2023, but I agree with Mr. DeCardi. I think this building is going to be something everyone involved in is going to be particularly proud of. In terms of a couple of practical matters, I agree with Mr. Kale about making sure that the entry reads in architectural terms. The antithesis of what we want, and I'll admit I have never seen it in Menlo Park. I did view in West Los Angeles many years ago when I was a young architect, a black glass box of a building that to which no one could find the front door, and they literally had to create a monument sign that said entry with an arrow. And I took a picture of it thinking there could be nothing more embarrassing to an architect than to have failed to define where the entry to his building was, to the point that there had to be this. That's certainly not the case here, but wayfinding at a site plan level is often not given quite enough emphasis, particularly in modern architecture. I think I would have to say that nearly every building that we have approved in the Connect Menlo district has had what I would call a subtle definition of entry, largely because it competes with so many other forms. So enough said. That's just a hope that there will be something a little more identifiable. And then thank you so much to Mr. DeCardi for making the observation about viewing stands. As a tennis player and therefore sometimes tennis observer, I don't last very long on bleachers, I have to say. You have a fighting chance if you bring a sun hat, and that's about it. So something to shade the viewing area does not have to be as extensive as actually putting solar panels up. Perhaps it doesn't even need to be a permanent structure. It doesn't need to be a solid structure. It could be slats. But that would be, I think, sort of the cherry on top of an absolutely fantastic dessert for those who are involved in sports. Getting back to the main response that I have to this project is that we were lucky to have exceptionally responsive and talented architects, although I have known the history of Hart Howerton and I frankly expected this to be a good project. I just didn't know that it would be this good. So so glad to see this. I think at this point, it's our job to, and Mr. Turner, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we actually take a formal vote to make the recommendation. So I would like to propose, I'll go ahead and make the motion to recommend to the City Council to make the necessary findings and take actions for the approval of the Menlo Park Community Campus project. And do I have a second? Mr. Kale. Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any final comments from anyone? All right, then let's vote. Starting as ever with, excuse me, Mr. Barnes.
Yes.
All right, and Mr. DeCardi. That's a yes. And Mr. Doran. a yes, and Mr. Kale?
Yes.
Yes, and Ms. Tate? And I'm a yes. I don't see an image of Ms. Kennedy, so I will assume that Ms. Kennedy was not able to make it through to this meeting. So we have, not surprisingly, unanimity here, 6 approval and 1 absent. And rather than saying congratulations, I'm just going to say again, thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone. Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, and that closes our public hearings. And brings us to informational items. Ms. Sandmeyer, we have some meetings coming up.
Yes, so the next meeting will be January 11th. So we have 2 Bayfront projects on that agenda, 111 Independence, and then the Menlo Uptown project. And both of those will be coming for a study session and review of the draft EIR. And then we may also have 2 smaller projects on that agenda, but that hasn't been finalized yet. That concludes my update, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions tonight for staff? All right, Mr. DeCardi.
It's not a question, but I just want to express my thanks to the staff. You all through the pandemic here worked quickly to allow us to be able to do this work online, to be able to move early on and to be able to support this through really difficult circumstances. And as we're approaching the end of the year here, and I hope you all can get a break through the holidays, I just want to extend my thanks for you all in making my part of the work here on the Planning Commission go much more smoothly than I could have ever imagined. What is now, I can't believe it, almost 9 months ago. So thank you. Thank you all.
All right, well said, Mr. DeCardi. All right, with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 9:04 p.m. Good night, all.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Thank you, Chair Riggs.
Thank you, Corinna.
Thank you.